win, guys. All I can think about is...
Detroit Lions players on the chopping block, who is fighting for their NFL life before training camp even starts. Training camp is less than a month away, Lions fans. And let me tell you something. Right now, somewhere in the Detroit metropolitan area, there are professional football players who are not sleeping. They are lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every missed rep, every dropped pass, every blown assignment from OTAs and minicamp, asking themselves one terrifying question. Am I going to make this roster? Because here is the reality of what the Detroit Lions have built under Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. This is not a team where you show up, cash a check, and coast into September. This is a program that demands you earn your spot every single day. And if you're not bringing it, somebody younger and hungrier and cheaper is standing right behind you ready to take everything you have worked for. 6 players have had their names put on a stock-down list heading into training camp. And today we are going through every single one of them. We're going to agree where the evidence demands it, push back where the logic does not hold up, and give you the full picture of who is genuinely in danger and who is going to be just fine. Let's get into it right now. The first name on the list is Sione Vaki. And right out of the gate, we need to slow down and separate two very different conversations that keep getting mixed together because the confusion is doing this player a serious disservice. Yes, Dan Campbell sat in front of cameras and was brutally honest about where Vaki stands as a running back. He called the position raw. He acknowledged that Vaki has been around it, dabbled in it coming out of college as a converted safety, but the injury bug has bitten him so many times over the past 2 seasons that his development at the position has been stunted. And the numbers do not lie. Over 2 NFL seasons, Vaki has accumulated just 10 total touches on offense for 55 all-purpose yards. When you put in black and white like that, it sounds alarming. It sounds like a player who has had every opportunity and done nothing with it. But here is the part of the story that keeps getting buried, and it is the most important part. Sione Vaki's value to the Detroit Lions has never, not for one single second, been primarily about what he does with the ball in his hands on offense. This man is a core special teams player. He is the kind of violent, relentless, downfield presence on special teams that Dan Campbell has based his entire roster construction philosophy around. You want to know who Dan Campbell loves? Players who will sprint full speed down the field on a kickoff and put their body on the line every single play, regardless of whether the cameras are on them or a single person in the stadium is chanting their name. That is Sione Vaki. Brad Holmes was talking him up heading into OTAs, and you simply do not go out of your way to publicly praise a player you're planning to cut. Multiple roster projections have him firmly on the 53-man roster, and the reality is that Jacob Sailors, as entertaining and exciting as he has been, the UFL's leading rusher who showed up mid-camp last year and turned heads, is not yet a complete enough player to push Vaki off this team. Sailors is a fun watch in the preseason. He's a guy you love to root for. But asking him to carry a significant load during the regular season is a different conversation entirely. Vaki is not on the chopping block. His stock is not down. He just needs to stay healthy and let his special teams work do the talking, and this roster spot is his to keep. Now, Miles Frazier? Miles Frazier is an entirely different story, and this is one where the evidence is stacking up in a way that is very hard to argue against. The offensive line room for the Detroit Lions this offseason has become one of the most crowded, most competitive, most brutally honest position battles on the entire roster. And when a room gets that deep, somebody good is going to get squeezed out. It might not be fair. It might not reflect the effort or the talent of the player being left behind. But that is the NFL, and right now, Frazier is the odd man out in a numbers game that is not working in his favor. Here is the situation. You have your starting trio on the interior, Christian Mahogany, Cade Mays at center, and Tate Ratledge, and those spots are locked in. Then you have your 4 offensive tackles, and you want to protect all 4 of those roster spots, because tackle depth in the NFL is precious. So now you are already at 7 offensive linemen before you even get to the backup interior pieces. And who are those backup interior pieces? You have Juice Scruggs, who can play multiple positions on the interior. You have Ben Bartch, the veteran they brought over from San Francisco, who Dan Campbell himself lit up when discussing the left guard competition. Not talking about Frazier, talking about Bartch. You have Giovanni Manu repping at guard. You have Melvin Priestley in the mix. When you look at that list and you count the bodies, Miles Frazier is staring at a very real possibility that he does not make this 53-man roster. Most teams carry 8 or 9 offensive linemen. If the Lions are going with 9, Frazier is fighting for what might be the final interior spot against veterans with more versatility and younger prospects with more upside. The Lions went out and got Scruggs and Bartch. If you are comfortable with what Miles Frazier gives you, you get one of them. You do not get both. The front office has spoken with their actions, and the message is not subtle. This stock is down, and it is down for real. Let us talk about Dominic Lovett, the wide receiver who has had his name buzzing in Detroit circles since he arrived, and has yet to fully deliver on the promise that buzz created. Here is the honest truth about Lovett's situation. He is a player who the coaching staff genuinely wants to keep believing in, but he keeps giving them reasons to have second thoughts. The drops have been a persistent issue. Not just a training camp blip or a bad week, but a consistent problem that showed up in OTAs and continued right through minicamp. That is not a good sign. Drops that stick around through the spring are drops that tend to follow you into the regular season. And in an offense as precise and as timing dependent as what the Detroit Lions run with Jared Goff under center, you cannot have a receiver who the quarterback cannot trust in crucial moments. But there's a bigger picture here beyond just the drops, and it comes down to roster construction and what the Lions actually need at the position. Amon-Ra St. Brown is your engine. Jameson Williams is your explosive weapon. Isaac Taslaw is earning a bigger role. Greg Dortch brings versatility. When you already have those four contributing, the conversation about the fifth and sixth receiver spots becomes about what specific thing a player brings that the others do not. And with Kendrick Law suffering a torn ACL, which genuinely opened a door for Lovett by removing one of the most direct threats to his roster spot, you would think he would be running through that door with everything he has. Instead, he has continued to look like a work in progress. He also has not established himself as a special teams contributor, and in the Dan Campbell era, that is not a small thing. That is a critical thing. Special teams production is currency on this roster, and Lovett has not been spending it. He is probably going to make this team when training camp arrives, but probably is not the same thing as certainly, and the Lions could absolutely pivot to a different receiver profile if someone else steps up. The stock is down on this one. Ahmed Hassanein is a name that has been generating quiet buzz around Allen Park, and it is both exciting and complicated at the same time. This is a player who has done everything the Lions have asked of him in terms of work ethic and body transformation. He has added weight, added strength. He has been using Aiden Hutchinson's personal trainer to completely overhaul his body, and the coaching staff has called him a pleasant surprise this spring. All of that is genuinely encouraging, and if this was simply a story about effort and development, it would be a positive segment. But the NFL is not a story about effort. It is a story about fit, and the Detroit Lions have a very specific type when it comes to their edge rushers. Long, big, physical presence with the length to set the edge against NFL-caliber offensive tackles. When you look at the players Hassanein is competing against for a roster spot, Tyler Lacey, Levi Onwuzurike, Tyre West. Those are players checking in at 290, 300, north of 300 pounds. Hassanein has bulked up to 275, which is progress, but it is still a significant gap. And the coaching staff has been transitioning him from a pure rush into the big in position, which tells you something important. They have recognized the same size concern and are trying to find the best fit for what he actually brings. When you're being moved around positionally in the spring because the coaches are not sure where your best spot is, that is not the profile of a player whose roster spot is guaranteed. He is competing for a spot behind Hutchinson, DJ Wonnum, Derek Moore, and Peyton Turner. The room is deep. The Lions have a defined physical prototype they prefer, and Hassanein does not naturally fit that mold. He has heart. He has the work ethic. Training camp will be everything for him. Damone Clark is the linebacker situation on this list, and this one requires a little more nuance before we reach a verdict. Clark had a quiet spring, and that is genuinely surprising for a player who has flashed real ability when healthy. He is a four-core special teams contributor in the same mold as Sione Vaki, and that value should not be dismissed when thinking about whether he makes this roster. But the part of this story that deserves attention is the emergence of Jimmy Rolder, the rookie linebacker who, by multiple accounts coming out of minicamp, has already shown himself to be a more impressive player than Clark in his limited looks. When a rookie linebacker is making you look over your shoulder before training camp has even started, that is a sign that your grip on your roster spot is loosening. Clark needs training camp to be a defining moment. He needs to show the coaching staff that he can hold up at the second level on defense, that he can make plays against the run and contribute in coverage, not just flash on special teams. His special teams value likely keeps him on the roster, but the question of whether he develops into a meaningful defensive contributor is very much unanswered, and that uncertainty, combined with a strong rookie pushing him, makes this a legitimate watch situation heading into August. And then there is Terrion Arnold, the cornerback who was supposed to be the answer, the first-round investment who was supposed to anchor this Detroit secondary for years to come. And instead, the story of Terrion Arnold through his first 2 NFL seasons has been a heartbreaking loop of flashing the ability that made him a first-round pick, then watching an injury come along and shut the whole thing down before he could ever truly build momentum. Last season, he dealt with a shoulder injury that cost him significant time. Then he came back, showed encouraging signs against Green Bay on Thanksgiving, and the shoulder gave out again. He ended up on injured reserve with season-ending surgery. Heading into this spring, he was going through OTAs and minicamp at roughly 75 to 80% by his own admission, doing walk thrusts, participating in limited fashion, but not fully practicing. He has said all the right things publicly, that competition breeds excellence, that he welcomes the challenge, that every year in the NFL is a make-or-break year. And look, the mentality is admirable. The words are good, but words have to eventually be backed up by production, and Terrion Arnold has not yet had a full, healthy, dominant NFL season to his name. He is heading into year 3, which is the year the Lions will have to make a decision about his 5th-year option. The pressure on his shoulders, literally and figuratively, could not be any higher. And here is what makes the situation even more tense. The Lions did not sit around waiting to see if Arnold would figure it out. They went out in free agency and brought in Rock Ya-Sin on a contract that signals genuine intent. You do not pay a cornerback over $4 million just to be depth. The kind of money in the Lions' salary structure, where the have-nots are surviving on vet minimums and rookie deals, is a statement. It says we are not confident enough in what we have at this position to leave it alone. Dan Campbell himself put Arnold on notice coming out of minicamp, making it publicly clear that he's going to have to earn his starting spot. The Lions also added Keith Abney and Roger McCreary to the cornerback room. So the competition is real, and it is layered. Arnold has the talent. Nobody who watched him play at Alabama or during his best NFL moments has ever questioned the ability. The question has always been the durability and the consistency, and those are the two things that have repeatedly failed him. Training camp needs to be the moment he puts every doubt to rest, shows up physically healthy, and proves that the player the Lions believe they were getting with that first-round pick is still in there and ready to deliver. The Lions need it. The fans need it. And more than anyone else, Terrion Arnold needs it. So here is where we land when we step back and look at all 6 of these situations together. Sione Vaki is going to be fine. His special teams value is too real, and the noise about Jacob Saylors pushing him out is overblown. Miles Frazier is genuinely in trouble in a numbers game on the offensive line that the Lions created by aggressively adding competition, and he may not survive it. Dominic Lovett's drops and lack of special teams contributions are a real concern in a receiver room that has gotten very crowded, and training camp has to be a breakout moment for him, or someone else takes a spot. Ahmed Hassanein is a feel-good story in terms of effort and transformation, but the Lions have a physical prototype at edge rusher, and he is fighting against it. Damone Clark's special teams value keeps him relevant, but a rookie breathing down his neck changes the math. And Terrion Arnold is the high-stakes situation on this entire list. Not because he is most likely to be cut, but because the gap between his ceiling and his current production represents the single biggest what-if on this entire Detroit Lions roster. Football is right around the corner. Training camp changes everything. Every single one of these players has an opportunity to walk into Allen Park in a few weeks and completely flip the narrative on their situation. That is what makes this time of year so electric, so dramatic, and so endlessly compelling. The chopping block is real, the pressure is real, and somebody's NFL dream is on the line. Now it is your turn. Drop it in the comments below. Which of these 6 players are you most worried about? Who do you think makes the roster, and who gets that brutal phone call from Brad Holmes? And while you're down there, are there any names that were not on this list that you think should have been? Because we want to hear from you. If you're not subscribed to Sports Talk Detroit yet, hit that button right now. We have been doing this for 5 years, and we are not slowing down. Hit the like button if this video gave you something to think about. Share it with a fellow Lions fan who needs to know what is coming. And we will see you on the next one. Detroit, let's ride. And one last thing before we wrap up, because the football stuff does not stop. Thanks for watching, guys. The Lions still need enjoy these kinds of deep dive Lions stories, and the name to like and subscribe for more breakdowns. If you are not familiar with Vaki, he was a fascinating pick by Brad Holmes, a player who was a safety in college that the Lions decided to convert to running back. Never really got a chance to develop because of injuries in the depth chart, and even when healthy probably would not have seen a ton of action behind David Montgomery and John Gibbs. But David Montgomery is gone now, and while Gibbs is an absolute superstar, a legitimate weapon that this offense runs through, you simply cannot feed Gibbs the ball on every single play and expect him to stay healthy all the way through games. You have to manage his touches, keep him fresh, and get to the postseason with a healthy superstar rather than an overworked one. That is where Vaki comes in. If he can finally stay healthy and show what he can do in stretches of games this season, that is a massive deal for this Lions offense. And then there is Isaiah Pacheco, who Detroit signed for a surprisingly low number, which makes you wonder about his health and how much he actually has left in the tank. There are real questions there, too. But all of those questions are secondary. No pun intended. to what is happening right now with Terry Long. What we are watching unfold is one of the most bizarre and genuinely sad stories in Detroit Lions recent history. A player who grabbed a microphone in front of 400,000 of his future fans and told Detroit he was ready, now sitting in a Florida jail cell facing 8 felony charges that could put him away for the rest of his life. Whatever happens in that culture, the football chapter for Terry Arnold in Detroit is almost